Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning if you are tuning in from Australia, for example. No, good evening if you're in Australia. Good morning if you're in Central Europe, where I am. And
It's
also
that time of year, isn't it, John, when all the times get muddled up and who knows?
Jack, times, dates, and even years. In fact, I think year is a very easy mistake to make. We're still kind of in 2022, many of us. We've been in the 2023 season, though, since 2022, if that makes any sense. Basically, when the United Cup kicked off for me was pretty much the beginning of the 2023 season on something like the 29th of December last year. Jack, how are you doing this, by the way?
Good, yeah, as I say, not quite in a different time zone yet. However, I'm already getting there. The draws, I've already had a look at them, John. They look very exciting, so I suppose I'm excited. Very excited to get into another slam. It's obviously been the longest amount of time, right, between two slams. There can be, I think, maybe Australia French is longer, actually. Either way, very excited, John.
Yeah, me too. Listen, I've already just picked out one or two matches from the first round that stood out for me. I've got, on the women's side, I've got Buskova Andreescu. Don't know if that stood out for you.
Yeah, big round ones. I've got a big list, and Buskova Andreescu was in there. That's got to be one of the big ones. Although Andreescu's been a little bit flaky recently, it's not a guarantee she actually gets even to that round. Or that is the round one, isn't it? Sorry, it's not a guarantee it's not a guarantee that's an epic. Sorry, I should say them. The ones I've got down, I'll fly through them, but stop me if you've got anything to say about them. Swiatek-Niemeier is the first one that Niemeier, whatever her name is pronounced.
Niemeier,
that's a big one. That'll be really difficult for Swiatek to hit the ground running there. Really flat hitter of the ball. Obviously, all Swiatek fans know fast balls aren't our forte, and Niemeier hits it faster than most players, basically, probably about 90% of the tour. So that'll be really tough. She had that US Open round against her as well. That was very difficult. And Anisimova, Kostyuk, depends how Anisimova's playing. She's been a little bit rusty, but that could be a good one. Azarenka Kenin, again, potential there. Obviously, you've got two former champs, right, playing in the first round. I mean, that's got to be a billion of some sort. But Kenin's no guarantee to play well.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, Jack, when I put players like Buskova Andreescu on my list, and you're right, Swiatek and Niemeier as well should be there. But when I'm putting these on a list, it's not because I necessarily think that Andreescu's in amazing form or that Buskova is going to go far or whatever. It's just that like Azarenka Kenin stood out as two former champs.
Yeah, I suppose mine is just like it's got the potential to be good, but yeah. I've got the rest of the list, actually, I suppose, is just ones that are standout for different reasons. Like I've also got Pavlyuchenkova, Georgie in there. That's quite two generally good players. Pavlyuchenkova being a former French Open finalist, but Pavlyuchenkova is coming back from injury. So likely it won't be a very good match, but it's noteworthy because Pavlyuchenkova hasn't played in like a year. So there you go. Pavlyuchenkova, Georgie in the first round. Muguruza Mertens again. Muguruza might not turn up, but could be a great one. Fernandez, Cornet. Now that's one where I expect both players to turn up. That'll be good.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that good one.
Yeah, that's two unseeded players, John. So not surprising it went under your radar. But
that's probably why, because I'm looking out for the emboldened.
Yeah, exactly. That should be great. I can't even call it really. I think Cornet maybe has the edge there.
Really, I think I might go Fernandez in that one.
Okay, interesting, John. Interesting.
Yeah. No, I just think there's been some shoots of form from her in the last few weeks.
Yeah, fair enough. Vondrousova Risk, if you saw that one.
No, I hadn't seen that one.
Vondrousova is a great player nowadays. Risk, to be fair, a little bit questionable. Vondrousova should get that. And then last one I had down was Goff Siniakova. But I do have in the Brits down as well, just because
I saw Harriet Dart. Who's she playing? I thought that was quite interesting.
Jill Teichmann.
Yeah, Jule Teichmann.
Yeah, that it's winnable actually. And Dart's won better matches in the past few months than Teichmann, but it will be very tough nonetheless. And then Raducanu Korpach. That's a winnable round for somebody coming back from injury. Definitely.
Yes, that stood out for me as well, just because, being a fellow Brit, and I was just wondering how tricky she's obviously well outside the top 32 now in terms of being close to being seeded. So I was also interested in that, and I thought, okay, that's winnable. Without sounding overconfident, if you like, regarding Raducanu. But yeah, that's as a fellow Brit, that's a match that stood out, if you like. I've put Buskova, Andreescu, Azarenka, Kenin, but I do think I should add Fernandez, Cornet to that list, and Niemeier against, of course, Wimbledon quarter-finalist in Niemeier against Swiatek.
Yeah, I'm forgetting she made the quarters there. She should be higher ranked. She should be. That's the thing. It's unfortunate she's unseeded.
No points.
Yeah,
no points. So, is there anything like upset-wise in the first round? I mean, I guess. Listen, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but maybe Niemeier could get a set. Things interesting.
Yeah, you'd expect Swiatek still to come through that unless she has a really bad day. I would say the Pegula match she had at the United Cup, with a little bit of hindsight afforded now, Swiatek didn't play terribly. Pegula played fantastically. So it was more about Pegula's form than it was about Swiatek's form. She still is a player that's dealing with fastballs better than she did a year ago. I think people easily forget that watching the Pegula match. She also won 3 matches at the United Cup. People tend to forget that as well. Almost, it stands out as just 1 loss rather than 3 wins and a loss for most people. So I'm not too worried about her. I am worried about her later in the draw, though, because her draw gets really bad. Although we can talk about that in a bit, right, John? I think we'll stick to first rounds first.
You want to do men's at first round and then come back to women?
Yes, that's a good idea, because I've got some projected routes written down as well, so we can talk about that.
Let's do men's first round. I've got some on the screen here, and I feel free to add, of course. Nadal, Draper, Tsitsipas, Halles, by the way, which hasn't really made any of the brief headlines I've read. Perhaps because it's Halles and also to some extent Tsitsipas. By the way, just I guess the first thing for me on the men's side that I wanted to know is are Djokovic and Nadal on the same side? And the answer, Jack, is
no, they're not. No. Which is it's good for everybody, I think, that they're not on the same side of the draw.
Do you think?
Well, it would have been a semi, of course. I'm thinking Djokovic is lower ranked.
Yeah, semi. Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, that's a good point. I was actually just thinking that the likelihood of them meeting is not very likely, bearing in mind they're on opposite side of the draw. But yeah, that's true. Even if it's a semi, yeah, no, you're right. I think it's better to keep our powder dry on that one. I've also got Rublev-Thiem.
Of course,
for a million different reasons and a million different narratives there. I've got Murray Berrettini, Dimitrov, Karatsev. We'll talk about some of these matches in a second in a bit more detail. We're not just going to brush over them. But have you got any others to add to that list? I don't know if you can see it on the screen.
Yeah, I've got all of those apart from Dimitrov, Karatsev. I don't fancy that one too much, John. I think Karatsev.
Australia, but I just thought is that 2 Australian Open semi-finalists now, I think.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're right. That's a good point. Right. Fair. So fair enough, John. The other ones I've got down are Ruud Machak down at the bottom of the draw. Thomas Machak, definitely capable of playing great tennis. Struff Paul as well. Just one that I thought, Struff is playing better than people are giving him credit for, having come through qualifying.
Okay, came through qualifying. I kept an eye on his results, funnily enough, because I wanted to see how Emilio Gomez did, having beaten the effects, having beaten Liam Brody, and he got pretty badly beaten by Struff, and then obviously Struff must have won today, I guess.
So that was I thought that was the second round, third round. I was losing track. He did, yes. So he came through pretty confidently, actually, probably the most confidently out of any of the Australian Open qualifiers. So he's definitely a dark horse, as always with Struff. And then we've got FAA Felix Auger-Aliassime versus Vasek Pospisil was the other one I had down.
Sorry, who's Struff playing in the first round?
Tommy Paul.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that his tournament may well depend on that, but as you say, often a dark horse. Okay, cool. Let's get into some of these matches in a bit more detail. I've got on my list at the top here Nadal, and he's of course at the top of the draw, being number 1 seed. Will Nadal make it? Do you think Draper has a chance? Why should Nadal be scared? And who's going through?
It's a brutal draw, and Nadal definitely should be scared. That's one of the toughest first rounds I've ever seen Nadal handed throughout the entirety of his career, without a doubt. I mean, Draper's on the cusp of the top 32. He probably is one of the highest ranked unseeded players, I should say, out of any of the players Nadal could have played. Draper's serve and forehand combo, as a lefty, to be fair, will be a little bit neutralized by Nadal, but it is so difficult to break Draper when he's in full flow on a hard court, right? And even if Nadal is playing his best tennis, it still could be tough given the fact Draper's a lefty himself. It's very difficult for Nadal just to pin people into the left-hand corner if there's a forehand there, and a particularly good one at that. It's really not a good matchup for Nadal. He's going to have to hit the ground running. I see 5 sets written all over it. I still see Nadal getting through because it's Nadal, John, but it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I probably, when I first saw it, I was like, my goodness me, it couldn't get much tougher. I'm not sure where he's ranked in the world, but you must be like just outside the top sort of 32, 33 players. And yeah, I mean, I saw him play very well at the back end of last year. Was he semi-finalist at Next Gen, I think? But I also remember him doing pretty well during that indoor season. And someone who didn't do very well in that indoor season was Rafael Nadal. Hasn't done very well since landing in Australia either in terms of back-to-back defeats. Says he's practicing well, however, which I think is something to take if you're a Nadal fan. But it won't come much easier in the next round if he was to progress against Draper, because Nakashima could well be lying in wait. Now, we know draws can get blown apart, but do they come much tougher than Draper and Nakashima back-to-back in rounds 1 and 2?
I think as well, it's worth pointing out that not only is his first round opponent a lefty, his second round opponent has a backhand of steel, potentially the best backhand we've seen in a generation. And then in the third round, you might also get Nishioka, who's a lefty. So you're talking 3 opponents that really don't match up well for Nadal's forehand. He is going to have to be playing out his skin from the word go. It's very tough. At the same time, John, I'm more worried about Draper than Nakashima, Nishioka. The first round is the dangerous one for me.
Yeah, I would agree. And in fact, if anything, they get slightly easier. But for those thinking and wishing that Nadal could ease himself into this tournament and into some form, he's not going to have the time or the space, I don't think. But let's see how that pans out. Listen, if he gets through those first 2 rounds in particular, I think then we can start to look forward. And we will look forward in a minute. Anyway, what else did I have on my screen? 4 matches on the men's side. Oh, Tsitsipas Halles. Tell us about that.
Yes, obviously has come to people's attention given Quentin Halles' last couple of weeks. He did just lose to Brooksby today. However, it was 2 tie breaks, very, very close match. I actually expect the result to go the other way. However, he's had plenty of good results. Played Djokovic in Adelaide and lost in another 2 tie breaks. Djokovic went on to say Halles was playing top 10 tennis. Having watched him, I think that's fair enough. He was playing out of his skin for the best part of those 2 sets. He continued that form in a lot of wins going into Auckland as well. There's no reason why Tsitsipas won't be thoroughly tested in the first round. However, John, I think it benefits Tsitsipas more than anybody else. Tsitsipas should come through that the way he's playing, and the rest of his draw is very kind. So if he gets through that, Tsitsipas is in good position to do well.
I have him down as the second sort of form player, if you like, in this. And he's now, of course, I think, am I right? Is he on the opposite side of the draw to Djokovic as well? So
yes,
it's him and
yes,
Nadal,
yes.
a potential semi-final there. I think, again, Nadal, potential semi-finalist, was always going to be, I guess it was always going to be the Tsitsipas or Djokovic. So I guess for him, that's good news in a way. What's kind of skewed things a bit, in my opinion, is that the world number 2 right now, Casper Ruud, is scratching for form. And I don't think has really played that well since the US Open final. And therefore, a bit like Rafa in some ways, there's no real recent form to go on for Casper Ruud. But with him world ranked 3, but seeded 2 because of Alcaraz's absence. Alcaraz's absence, I think, changes the dynamic of this draw dramatically. And suddenly Djokovic is potential semi-finalist, and probably there'll be others in the way as well, but could be Casper Ruud. Just makes that a lot more appealing than if Alcaraz was in the draw.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. Alcaraz's withdrawal obviously is very unfortunate. We talked about it on the podcast. World number 1 obviously goes out, is always going to be a shame. But really, it must have been a very difficult decision. So I assume it's a smart decision as well, John. There's not much we can do, I guess, on this end. It's probably scary for people for the rest of the slams of the year. I think it's very smart because there's other players that would have played the slam at this age without as professional a team behind them. So all I can do is commend Alcaraz for what he's done, to be honest, because it must have been very tough to make the decision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in fact, he's already signed up for one or two events in February. So suggests that it probably was a borderline decision.
Yeah.
I would argue. But anyway, Mohammed in the chat, by the way, asking, can Rafa win this? Check out a show I did a couple of days ago where it was basically, can certain players win or will they win? There are still some possibilities. And as you say, Jack, I think if he wins that round one, then we can start possibly thinking about it. But right now, let's get round one away. And that's exactly what Rafa would say. Rafa could be playing number 800 in the world, and he'd be talking about his round one right now, and wouldn't be talking about potential quarterfinals or semifinals. We know that, but his round one is very, very tough. Come through that, and then we can look forward. Okay. What else have I got? Oh, go on, tell me.
I was going to say we can flesh out a few of the projected routes if we like. Starting with Nadal going past the third round, because it would get tough for him if it wasn't already tough after the first 3 rounds. You're talking Tiafoe Kachanov in the 4th round. Tiafoe, obviously the player that beat him at the US Open last year. And then in the quarterfinals, you've got Medvedev, who is vulnerable, to be fair, but a repeat of last year's final in the quarterfinal, still tough for any player to deal with, definitely.
So if I just get this up on the screen for us for possible route for Nadal, we've obviously got Draper. I'm going to put Nakashima there, and hopefully I get the spellings right on this. Nishioka. Round 4, I'm going to go with Tiafoe just to save some space. What was the other alternative you thought for round 4?
Kachanov.
Okay. Medvedev. Is there anyone else in Medvedev's quarter who you think could get there at the Russians' expense?
Yes. So looking at Medvedev's actually got a really difficult draw. One of the tougher draws for any of the sort of favourites for the tournament. Giron's not an easy first round, although he should come through Marcus Giron. Then you've got Marc-Andrea Hussler. If Millman doesn't beat him, Medvedev would prefer John Millman beats him. But if Hussler gets through, he's a very, very sort of tricky wildcard opponent, capable of playing very snappy, lefty, aggressive tennis. Sometimes just takes the racket out of your hands if he's playing well enough. Then Sebastian Korda in the 3rd round. Then Hurkacz or Shapo in the 4th round. It's difficult, John, for Medvedev.
Yeah. I think that's a tough one, possibly tougher than Rafa's as well. So I've got this as a potential route for Rafa. I'm going to put it up on the screen there. Draper, Nakashima, Nishioka, Tiafoe. I've put them as sort of solids in solids. That probably won't happen, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But the Medvedev, Korda, Shapo, those are the 3. Am I going to guess that for Medvedev's quarter, you're going to go with Korda?
I'm not committed to that yet, John. Ask me in a few days. We'll see how I feel. I really don't know who to pick there, but yeah.
What about Tsitsipas's draw, by the way? I've put him down as a potential semi-finalist should Rafa get that far.
Put it this way, John. I've got projected semi-finalists down for the men and women's. Tsitsipas is the only person that I've put in as the only option for the semi-final. I am very, very confident in him getting through. It's not a given, and he's got two difficult opponents in the 4th round and the quarters. But starting from the top, Halles, obviously very difficult, but I think that puts him into very good form. Hanfman and Hijikata, qualifier and wildcard should be easy enough. Griekspoor, Van de Zandschulp, again, both solid players, but that's a good 3rd round for Tsitsipas.
Sinner's in there, I see. Cam Norrie.
Yeah, I'm not confident in Sinner after the injury scare and such. I really don't think he's going to be playing his absolute best tennis. And then Cam Norrie and FAA, they're 2 players that I think Tsitsipas should be able to deal with fairly, not easily, but he should be able to deal with if he's playing his best tennis, which I think he will be.
So Felix is in his quarter as well, is he?
Yes. Yes, yeah.
Okay. But, I mean, there's a few. I mean, Borna Coric is there too. Am I right on that?
Oh, I missed Coric.
Oh, no, Borna Coric is done. Yeah. Yeah, Borna Coric could. Yeah, okay, there's Felix. Yeah. So this is all his quarter, I think I'm looking at right now.
It was just he'd still have to make the quarters, Coric, to play Tsitsipas. So
yeah. No guarantees with that. But I perhaps he's the one that he'd want to avoid. I don't know. Of course, he's got that kind of monkey off his back with a win at the United Cup recently. But I mean, listen, I do think Tsitsipas is. I know we need to be careful with exhibitions and stuff, but I did see him a bit in December and at the United Cup unbeaten against some very erstwhile opponents. So, good news for Tsitsipas, probably. Let's have a look at the other half of the draw because I'd want to come back to the women as well at some point. But what are we looking at here in this quarter? This is, for me, Holger Rune, Nick Kyrgios, round 4 potential fireworks.
Oof, it's a round 3, is it not? I've got it down as round 3, John.
It could be round 3.
It
Is it
is round
3?
3. Yeah, it's
Woo!
round 3. Yeah, that's going to be tough. That will be tough for either player. That should be very exciting. I'm very excited for it, John, at least. For Kyrgios, no guarantees he gets through to your quarterfinal blockbuster matchup with Djokovic, with Rune in the draw. Kyrgios...
I'd have Rune getting to the quarters. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I really don't know, actually. I think I'm going to give it to Kyrgios, I think, by a whisker, but it's very difficult. Kyrgios, obviously, one of the favourites, so I have his projected route down. Sefilin in the first round should be easy enough, but that's actually not the easiest first round either. Sefilin, a big hitter of the ball. And then you've got your Ugo Humbert, hopefully, second round matchup with Kyrgios, the third time in their career they would have met at a slam, the previous 2 being 5 sets, and they've won 1 apiece. So that could be very exciting. Again, they tend to have epics. Don't know why, John. Just tends to be the matchup for some reason.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Rune in the third round, Rublev in the fourth round, Djokovic in the quarters. Very difficult for Kyrgios, but there's no guarantee all those players get through, to be honest. Like Rune and Rublev aren't in the finest form at the moment, given the start of the year. So it's not an absolute guarantee.
So let's talk about Djokovic. He's got Roberto Carballes Baena in the first round, which I don't think will trouble him too much. He'll then have either a qualifier or a Dellien in the next round. So that's a pretty nice first couple of rounds. I don't think Novak needs it as much as other players, but nevertheless, I do see that. Potential third round could be one of those former Australian Open semi-finalists, Dimitrov, Karatsev.
Honestly, I've got Bergs down as well as a potential third round.
Second, you got who?
Zizou Bergs.
Because you've probably got a different draw to me, which includes qualifiers, right?
Yes, that is the case.
Go.
Good point. I hadn't thought about that. I didn't even notice that, John. Yeah, well, there you go. Bergs is possible as well. But that also shows I'm feeling pretty ropey about Karatsev, Dimitrov as a pair. So, I think Djokovic has got a good first 3 rounds.
I see Dimitrov coming through that. I think that run, bless his heart, for Karatsev getting to the semi-finals does seem to be a bit more of an isolated incident. He did have a good run of form after that Aussie Open semi-final, but then it sort of fizzled out for me. So there we go. Maybe Dimitrov for Novak Djokovic in the third round, but big maybe. His fourth round.
Yeah,
PCB's
no guarantee. Obviously didn't lose to PCB technically at the US Open. He kind of lost himself, right? But he's still a bit of a bogey man for Djokovic. They played the bronze medal match a couple of years ago, and Djokovic lost that one. Of course, PCB's not an easy matchup for him, so that would be difficult.
The first set at the French Open in 2020 as well, and it was looking a bit shaky for him at one point. But I would still have Djokovic to come through that. Should that occur, of course, who knows? Maybe De Minaur could be in there. I'm looking at John Isner as well, but I don't know. For me, of all the players we've touched on so far, perhaps Djokovic has the kindest route to the quarter.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Tsitsipas, again, I feel like he's playing players that are vulnerable at the moment. Sinner in the fourth round, for example, and then you've also got an easy second round, the quarter against FAA and Norrie, pretty good matchups for him. So I'm going to rave about him a little bit more. Djokovic and Tsitsipas, I think I've got the kindest brunt of the lot for me.
I'd probably just have Djokovic as a kind of a route to the quarter, at least, just because there's not like a halves in there, like a round one with halves. I think it's just elevates Tsitsipas's trickiness. But I agree with you. After that, until the quarters, at least, it's probably fairly negotiable for the Greek. In the quarterfinal, of course, Djokovic, potentially Kyrgios, potentially Holger Rune. Rune, of course, beating him in Paris recently, so much tougher there. What are we thinking about semi-finals for? Actually, we'll come to the semi-final in a second because I know you've got your projected for men's and women. That'll bring us nicely back to the women. Let's finish with round one or the early rounds. Oh, we've got to mention Berrettini Murray.
I can't believe we forgot that one. I figured it had just been spoken about, I guess, John, or maybe I'm making some sort of mental block for myself so I don't have to look at it. I don't know. That's brutal. It's very, very tough, and unfortunately, we're probably going to see our man going out in the first round. However, it's from an unbiased point of view, it's a popcorn match, right? It'll be really, really good fun.
Yeah, right. Of course, they met quite recently in New York, where it was 4 sets win for Berrettini. Berrettini as well, showing some reasonable form, bearing in mind he's obviously spent quite a bit of the last 6 months out injured or with COVID, as it was at Wimbledon. So, yeah, and of course, the winner of that will play Kokkinakis-Fognini, which I think would also be interesting. Whichever player comes through that particular match, I think those 4 players, they are interesting for one reason or another. Fognini and Kokkinakis, perhaps sometimes Fognini in particular for non-tennis reasons. Casper Ruud, probably quite fortunate there, I would suggest, with his first couple of rounds.
Yeah, I didn't even open up his draw. If you move down, I can't see it just because of the banner there. Well, who's Ruud against in the first round? Thomas Matchak, of course. Yeah. Brooksby in the second round's not easy, to be fair, but he should still win that, just given how well he can play from the back. And then third round, actually, is not terrible. He's not got the worst draw in the world. So if he does sort of settle into form, he's got a good chance.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it could be Ruud Berrettini 4th round. I think that's where it gets interesting for Casper, and I would probably make Berrettini favourite for that. But we're doing all these projections, and we know that they will get probably blown to smithereens on day one. Zverev, do we know who Zverev is playing? I've got him down against a qualifier, but maybe you're...
I don't have it written down, John. Just give me 2 seconds. I do just have
no problem. But of course, Zverev, of course, has been out injured for a long time. So I think every single match for him and any kind of victory would be useful. Schwartzman is also against the qualifier. That's assuming Schwartzman is fit.
Yeah, Schwartzman's... we can't say anything about Schwartzman, really. That was a brutal loss the other day, and he was very upset. So, yeah, it must have been a properly bad injury. Zverev's against Juan Pablo Varillas, who is a Peruvian qualifier, who should be quite an easy first round if he's feeling fit.
Yeah, cool. Yeah. Okay, any final... Oh, Basilashvili, Taylor Fritz?
Yeah, I didn't write that one down. Basilashvili's just a little bit too flaky at the moment. It should be easy for Fritz.
Okay, cool. Any other final thoughts? What are your quarterfinals? Have you got quarterfinals sort of lined up?
Did I write that down? I think I've just put my semis down. Yes, I've put Nadal, Medvedev as the quarterfinals.
Oh, you've got Nadal getting to the quarterfinals.
Yeah, you got to back him. I mean, it's a tough first 4 rounds, but he's still the overwhelming favourite out of the players there. So I'm still going to back him, but it's very difficult for him. So
I'm going to put these up on the screen if you can more or less tell me them. You've got Nadal, Medvedev. Mm-hmm. What else have you got?
Then I've got Tsitsipas down. I believe it would be Norrie or FAA, so I'm going to go for FAA, I think, there. Say Felix Tsitsipas.
Felix Tsitsipas, yeah, go on.
Pretty predictable so far. Then you've got Djokovic, Kyrgios, Rune. That's the tough one. I did say Kyrgios, so I'll stick to it. Djokovic, Kyrgios for me.
Okay.
And then I think Ruud gets through Zverev, given the injury, obviously. And then why have I got a big question mark beside Fritz?
Ruud Berrettini was a 4th round, though.
Yes, it was. And you're back in Berrettini, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with Ruud after the US, but it's tough for me to call it for sure.
Okay, and who's Ruud playing in the quarterfinals?
Fritz? Who's Fritz potentially against? Who have we got at the bottom of the draw?
Let me have a look just a second. Let's have a quick look at Fritz's route, because I do think he's not even a dark horse anymore. He's of course he's a fancied player, if you like.
He's right up there.
Basilashvili, Kecmanovic, Schwartzman, Zverev. That's his sort of potential sort of 4th rounders that stick out for me in terms of emboldened players, if you like. Ben Shelton's in there too. So for me, Fritz's route to the quarterfinal looks fairly assured. Berrettini and Casper Ruud is the sort of 4th round I'm looking at in that bottom section there. So I think you're going to back Fritz, right, to get to the quarters?
Yeah, I'm going to have to. It's a little bit boring, but honestly, all the favourites look in pretty fine fickle this part of the year, and generally they've all been given the first rounds to warm up, apart from Nadal, who's really going to have... I expect him to hit the ground running, though. Medvedev is the only one, actually, that I'm a little bit flaky on. I'm not 100% Medvedev.
I'll probably keep my powder dry, but I'd be very unsure about Medvedev getting to that round. And to be honest with you, what's your semi-finals for the men? By the way, women's tennis fans out there, we're going to go for a deep dive on that in a minute.
I'm going Tsitsipas, Nadal...
Okay, yeah. I would have, if Nadal gets to that quarterfinals and is playing Medvedev, assuming that they sort of struggle to get there in some ways, but I would fancy Rafa in that matchup. And what's your other one? Djokovic against
Fritz.
Fritz, yeah.
I'm going Fritz. I'll go Fritz.
Yeah.
If Fritz gets that far to the quarters, I think he's, our fourth round, I think he makes another 2 rounds for sure.
Yeah, I would from your section, if you like, I would have that as well. And your final?
Is that not everybody? Djokovic, Fritz for that's all the semis, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, wait. Yeah, that's everybody, is it not?
That's your semi-final. So who's your final?
Oh, final. I thought you were like my final, semi-final. Final, I'm gonna go for Djokovic v. Obviously Djokovic v. Tsitsipas.
Makes sense. I would understand that too, at least from this group. As I say, I'm not sure that Ruud would get that far to the quarters, and I'm certainly not sure about Medvedev. Felix as well. I'd have to have a look there. I've got Rune down in the quarterfinals, but we're sort of overlapping quite a lot. And probably right now, off the top of my head, before the draw was even made, I was thinking Tsitsipas Djokovic final. But listen, lots of tennis to be played between now and then. Let's get to the women. Jack, let me get some of this up on the screen right now. I've got the men's draw. What are your first thoughts before I manage to get the women's draw up on the screen? We've already talked about some of our popcorn matches in round 1. What are your thoughts beyond that first round?
Well, obviously, the men, I was very confident in all the seeds. I'm not as underconfident as a lot of people will be in some of the seeded players for this part of the year. There's a lot of players that are seeded that might go under the radar. I want to draw attention. Should we do dark horses or should we do projected routes? Yeah, a few dark horses just first then. Veronika Kudermetova's got to go up there. People always forget about Kudermetova. She's still like number 9, 10 odd in the world. Her draw is kind. It's Zanevska, who is fighting back into form in the first round. Volinets, Rodina in the second. That's a pretty easy first 2 rounds. Zhang even should be easy as a seeded player. And then Pliskova, Kasatkina, all those players, I could see Kudermetova getting through in straight sets. So an easy route to the quarterfinals for any women's player, that is a very, very tough ask. So Kudermetova...
By the way, sorry to interrupt you there, Jack, is in action right now. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
And listen, this is a popcorn match. She's playing in Adelaide as we speak. They're on serve in the 3rd set, but I probably should tell you who she's playing. Daniel Collins.
I thought it was Dan. I don't know why I thought it was Collins. Maybe I had seen the draw or something. Wow. And
former Australian Open finalist, last year's finalist. And listen, Daniel Collins on form is sensational and probably, one of the top sort of 5 players in the world on form. But sadly, due to injuries and certain other issues that unfortunately she's not always been able to show her best form. But maybe she's got an Australia thing going on. But she's in the quarterfinals right now against Kudermetova. So yeah, that's an interesting one. You picking out Zhang, she would be my dark horse, to be honest.
So the person that Kudermetova is playing is Shui Zhang, and Qinwen Zhang is my dark horse. So
got it. Qinwen Zhang is my dark horse. Yes, I'm getting my players muddled up there. But Kudermetova, and I'll take that back off the screen there. If she's not your dark horse. I mean, I know what you mean, though. She is someone, despite being top 10 in the world, it's every time I look at the top 10 in the world, it's like, oh okay, I forgot that she was there.
But it's fair enough. She's one of those players that has consistent results, but she does rarely make it to sort of finals, big latter stage, big events, sort of stuff like that. So it's fair enough that people forget about her. She is yet to make that sort of really snappy sort of appearance at a really big event. So if it happens here, I wouldn't be surprised, and people will probably give her a bit more respect, I guess.
Nice balanced opinion here from Andy. Sorry, it just makes me laugh. Listen, regarding the draw, at least in Australia, we get to, potentially we get to see it on TV. If you or I get up at 4:00 in the morning, I was already grumbling about that yesterday. I don't know why they didn't wait for the qualifiers to take place, but I must admit, when I saw your message last night saying, they'll just slot them in there, I was like, yeah, that is true. But I wish that they do it a bit later, and then we're all a winner, except perhaps some part of the world, maybe in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean where it's the middle of the night. But for everyone else, if they did it in the evening in Australia, it would be in the morning here.
Yeah, exactly.
But at least that's fairly transparent in terms of having it on TV and stuff. I mean, I know Wimbledon does it on the radio, I believe, but you can only access that in the UK. and pretty much other tournaments and slams don't
The
even.
French, well, the French was okay. I
French is
remember
okay.
last
Yeah,
year.
French.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
a bit. I think it's a bit rough at the edges. The French one.
Yeah.
I remember sort of some muddle ups there and just not really knowing what's going on. But at least
Yeah.
it's transparent. But maybe it's the US Open one that just suddenly appears then, and it's like okay. And I actually said to who was I talking to recently? I think it was Marcus Buckland about this. I said, listen, they could make this an event. There's so many tennis nerds out there nowadays and YouTube channels like you and I, Jack, that really are pumped for the draw. You know, we're pumped for it's part of the build up. You've got the tournaments before, but arguably the highlight of this week before, no disrespect to Adelaide 2 and I don't know, Perth 73 or whatever's going on right now. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, Perth 73 isn't happening right now. I just made that up. But you know what I mean? This is the highlight of the week before, right?
Yeah, 100%. I agree. There's a lot of preamble that should be made about the draw, so I totally agree.
It's funny. As a kid growing up, and even more recently, I never really took much stock in the draw. For me, it was always Rafa wins, French, and so on and so forth. But you know, I'm now realizing that I think draws do matter in particular. And I do agree though that perhaps it's been a kind draw for Novak and not so kind for Rafa. We've got some Raducanu comments here. In some ways, Raducanu could get an epic confidence boost if she gets through. But anyway, yeah, what are we thinking about Raducanu and just in general, perhaps? But if you can remember her draw off the top of your head.
Yeah, so she's against Korpatch in the first round. Winnable, but honestly, it's going to be split down the middle. And then Goff, it should be a loss. It should be a loss.
Goff will be a second round.
Yeah, Goff's
Okay,
the second round.
Listen, that's exciting.
That's exciting. But
two teams.
It should be a loss though, for sure. Is it maybe Raducanu still? Yeah, she is. Wow, you're right.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't. It's somebody coming back from injury that early. The fitness is not going to be there for somebody like Goff, who's an incredibly good mover. You know, it'll take a lot of fitness to beat Goff, and it's not there for Raducanu.
And also somebody suggesting that it's not the easiest of first rounds.
Yes. So if we want to flesh out Swiatek's draw, actually, that's quite.
Yes, let's do that. Sorry, Jack. Let's do Swiatek.
That's a good idea because Rybakina was somebody that was a potential fourth round there, but there's no.
Buskova as well. Andreescu, Buskova, potential third round. That could be exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. We mentioned that earlier, didn't we? But you're totally right. And Buskova, I think, should get through that one. And
really,
yeah. Which actually, so although Swiatek's draw looks terrifying at first, Niemeier is actually probably the hardest part of it until the quarters for me because I think that first round, obviously, if she doesn't hit the ground running, flat hitter should be tough. Second round against Osorio is kind for her. Osorio is not a good hardcourt player. Third round against Buskova, who I think will get through Andreescu. Buskova is great, but she's more of a sort of consistency player. You know, one of the best counter punchers in the game. Doesn't really work against Swiatek, so it's actually not the greatest matchup. And in the fourth round, I don't think Rybakina gets through just based on flakiness. But I totally forgot Collins was the fourth round and not the quarters. It's Collins that's the scary one, obviously, because there's going to have to be something done differently from last year if Swiatek has got a chance against Collins.
Yes, they played last year in the semi-finals, right?
Yeah, and it was 4-1.
4-1. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
She's probably not had a bruising defeat like that since, really.
Apart from Pegula, of course, Sean. That's the only.
6-2, 6-2.
Yeah. Apart from that,
that was bruising. Yeah, but maybe I just take more stock in an Australian semi-final than I would in it. But you know what I mean, anyway. But yeah. Okay, good point. And there are more question marks because of that Pegula defeat for sure. I thought Pegula was sensational. I thought Pegula changed her game. It felt like for that particular match in terms of aggressive style. But listen, I'd love to see a Daniel Collins, Iga Swiatek repeat, if you like.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else to mention regarding her? We'll get to your semi-final prediction in a minute, but anything else to say about her quarter?
I've got Goff, Badosa, Zheng there. If she gets to the quarters, she'll be in pretty good nick. I'd fancy her at that point against any of those players. Goff's not a good matchup for or Swiatek's not a good matchup for Goff.
They played each other at the French, Zheng.
Zheng got through. I'd fancy her chances more than Badosa and Goff, to be honest. Just because better matchup against Swiatek, but no guarantee. Even though I probably my favorite player outside of the top 10, but I don't think it'll happen.
Jessica Pegula then in the next section. So that's we'll come to your semi-finals in a minute, but Pegula and Sakkari, that's a potential quarterfinal if I'm reading this rightly.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, you're
Number 3 and
correct.
6. That would be very exciting. A lot of tennis to be played before then. By the way, a lot of tennis to be played before then should be just my go-to phrase at the end of almost every sentence, really.
Yeah.
Anyway, Madison Keys is in this quarter as well. Azarenka, as we picked out earlier. Azarenka, Kenin, I think is interesting. Kenin, if there's just some shoots of positivity, I thought I think she lost to Coco Gauff recently, but it was 6-4, 6-4. You know, bearing in mind we've had long spells without seeing Kenin play, and then when we did see her play, she was going out pretty much early in every tournament she played. But you know, that's an interesting match. What do you think?
She beat 3 players on the bounce in the tournament she's playing at the moment in Hobart. So I mean, that's the first time in a long time Kenin's done anything. So she might be finding a little bit of form. Kalinina was the last player she beat.
Won today, yeah.
Yeah, Kalinina is a good player. I mean, she's like 40 in the world or something. That's a very difficult match for her to win. So there's chances. Definitely, Kenin's maybe playing pretty well.
Ghibli, when we get to Krejcikova and her draw, I'm happy to discuss and answer this question. I'll leave it on the screen for a minute or two. But
it could be relevant now because we've got Pegula's right above there, right? And I think Pegula is.
Oh, there she is, Krejcikova. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
I'm glad we have. You know what? I think she might be the person to emerge from this. And who she? Oh, Pegula. Okay.
Yeah, I've got words about that. Honestly, out of all the seeds, or the top 8 seeds, I guess, so your quarter-finalist potentially, Pegula's probably got the best chance of making the quarters out of all of them for me. Pegula is almost a dead cert. Jacqueline Christian, easy in the first round. No offense to Christian.
Dead cert to beat Krejcikova.
Yeah, I think so. Sasnovich in the second round will be tough, but probably still win it.
I'm going to clip this and replay it.
Anisimova in the third round. Then you've got Krejcikova or Kvitova. Krejcikova doesn't even definitely make it through Kvitova in the third round.
Sure.
For sure. I think Pegula beats Krejcikova or Kvitova. Definitely.
What, of course, can easily happen as well. We revise these opinions when we see them play because we see these players playing really well in the build-up and then they go out in round 1 and we see other players skittling through players in straight sets, or sometimes they're struggling through. You know, you might see Rafa in back-to-back 5-setters and then you're suddenly thinking, oh, he might not make. But so it is a very revisable opinion. But right now, I don't know. I've got a feeling about Krejcikova in her 2023.
It's fair. We all remember her playing in Ostrava against Swiatek, and it's very easy to get swept up in that. Generally, though, as a hardcourt player, she's a little weaker than she would be on natural surfaces, clay and grass included, just because of her serve in particular. It's very slidey, you know, it skids off of natural surface, where on hardcourts it's a little bit easier to read. Pegula's just, you know, let's remember Pegula's match against Swiatek as well, and that was only a few weeks ago. Pegula's playing fantastically. She's made the quarters of pretty much in fact, she made the quarters of every slam last year. Yep, that's correct. She is the favourite out of all the seeds to get through her first 4 rounds, given her track record for me.
Okay, fair enough. What about this Sakkari section, if you don't mind me calling it that? Do you see her making the quarters?
This is tough. So I took this top 6 favourites, right, and fleshed out their draws. Sakkari didn't even make the top 6 favourites, so I've not quite fleshed it out. This is me looking at it properly for the first time. First round, fine. Second round, fine. Teichmann, actually, yeah, okay. First 3 rounds, decent. Azarenka or Kiso, it's a 50-50 for me, John.
Azarenka 50-50?
Keys or Azarenka, one or the other.
Keys or Azarenka, yeah.
So whoever plays Sakkari, that would be a 50-50 matchup for me.
I've got, in terms of the women's title, I've got listen, whether you're going to put money on her or whether you really think she'll do it or not, but whatever. I've got Swiatek kind of on her own as the favorite, and then I've got a group of players that would be Pegula, Sabalenka, and I'm sure there's one more in my next group underneath that. Who's world ranked? No, not
do you say Garcia? You say Garcia?
Garcia, exactly.
Yeah,
so they're in a group of 3, if you like. So Swiatek's in the Premier League, if you like, in the Championship, if you excuse my footballing parlance. I've got Pegula, Sabalenka, and Garcia just below in terms of favourites. Then the next group would be probably Zachary. And so I've got, Zachary. I would even have maybe Zheng in this next group of a potential surprise finalist or something like that. Krejcikova would definitely be. I'm close to putting Krejcikova in that group with Pegula, Sabalenka, and Garcia. That's how big I am on her.
I've got Samsonova in there as well, John. I got to back her. She's got a good draw as well. It's, she's got a very good chance.
Let's have a look at the other half. Is she in the other half, perhaps?
She is. Yeah, she is. She's right down at the bottom, I believe. Wherever you want to start, obviously.
Yeah, well, let's have a look. She's in here with potentially with Jabeur, who for me again a bit like Casper Ruud. 2 finals last year, two major finals for Ons Jabeur and Casper Ruud, but 2 players who've scratching for form, I would say, since their US Open runs, and 2 players who, just funny parallels here with Casper Ruud, is I do fear with both of them that they may have missed the boat. They may have missed the boat. It's a question.
Yeah.
That was their chance. I mean, particularly with Jabeur, I think there'll be plenty more chances to come, perhaps on the clay or grass in the summer rather than the hard court of Australia. But I don't know. Jabeur's 29 years old. It's not like somebody like Iga, in my opinion, who you just think is going to be there, week in, week out, almost, if you like. And also some of the other players are just very young. So, someone like Raducanu, Coco Gauff, they've got time on their side. I just wonder with Jabeur and listen, I'll be very, very happy in 2 weeks from now if I'm eating my words and she's in the Aussie Open final and goes on to lift the title. But right now, I don't see it.
I think a lot of people looking at the draw aren't particularly confident in Jabeur making it to the latter stages for sure. I don't think it's a given. I would struggle to find people who are picking Jabeur to get through to the semis for sure. I would say, especially in a hard court. I know she played really well at the US Open, but actually it was a very scratchy. I like Swiatek. She kind of scraped her way through the draw to get to the final. A lot of close matches, and credit to her for getting through those matches. But yeah, there's no guarantee that happens again. That would be very tough. Vondrousova in the second round is brutal. That's not easy, and easily could go out there. Kanepi as well, the giant killer at the slams. Definitely could happen, an upset there. Basically, every round for Jabeur is ropey. It's going to be really, really difficult.
I would make her favourite for each round, but 60-40 if you like. And therefore that accumulation makes a fourth or a quarter-final more and more difficult. I've got Haddad Maia as well. So you've probably got Samsonova beating Haddad Maia,
I do. Again, kind of like Krejcikova, Haddad Maia is a little bit better on the sort of natural surfaces, particularly grass. Although fast court, actually, she can play pretty good front foot aggressive tennis like Krejcikova, so she could still find a way through. Samsonova as well has had the odd match where I've had to sort of bow my head and say, maybe I'm not as sure about this person as I thought I was. But if she's playing well enough, you can't stop Samsonova. She's an absolute bulldozer, so it could happen.
Just because they're emboldened. By the way, I like the fact that you picked out Pavlyuchenko for Georgia in the first round. I think for one reason or another, I think that will be a nice match to watch. Bencic and Sabalenka sticking out for me like sore thumbs because of the emboldened seeding. Of course, got Muguruza Mertens. Muguruza Mertens, by the way, nearly made my sort of tweet, if you like, regarding first round matches to look out for.
Think so.
Just intrigue. I think Muguruza is always intriguing, whatever happens, because of her style of play and her up and down form, if you like. But have you got Sabalenka playing Bencic in the fourth round?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I don't even have a slash beside Bencic. I'm pretty confident in Bencic's chances of getting through there. So yeah, fourth round, pretty guaranteed. It's quite tough for Sabalenka, but I still think it's kind of like Tsitsipas in the men's, in that Tsitsipas has a really tough start to the draw, but I think that'll stand in his stead rather than the other way around. So same with Sabalenka. Shelby Rogers as a second round for Sabalenka is difficult, but if she gets through that, I feel pretty confident about her beating Mertens, probably Bencic as well. And then at that point, it's anybody's game when you get to the quarters. So I'm pretty confident about Sabalenka, the way she played in Andelys particularly.
I know you've penned down your semi-finals, but if you can just row back and try and work out your quarterfinals, that would be great. If you could do that, that would be great. I may even be able to just chat for a few seconds about certain things. Yeah, I certainly I'm pretty hot on Sabalenka at the moment. Possibly the form player on the tour. winning in Adelaide last week, which was a 500 as opposed to the 250 on the men's side. But also Sabalenka, in my opinion, was, very not unlucky, but pushed Swiatek probably as much as anybody did in New York. She's also somebody, in my opinion, that doesn't need to fear Swiatek. 99% of the players on the tour should fear Swiatek for obvious reasons. Sabalenka is somebody who has consistently, or at least recently, troubled her, beating her in the WTA finals, as well as pushing her to 3 sets and being a breakup in that semi-final in New York. Have you got your quarterfinals?
I'm going to have to pick between Swiatek and Collins, aren't I? That is not something I'm totally ready to commit to. So I will pick Swiatek for now. However, if she is to beat Collins, she will have to completely change the game plan from last year, which isn't as easy.
So you're not really sure about Swiatek at all, particularly because of the draw.
Yeah, Collins is a brutal draw for her. The way she totally dismantled Swiatek's game last year, there's not much that's changed about Swiatek's second serve, and that will continue to happen if Swiatek doesn't sort something out. I suppose there's no guarantee Collins gets through. That's my caveat. So I'm going to say Swiatek based on the fact that I'd fancy her over any other player, bar Collins. So I'll pick Swiatek. So my quarters there would be Swiatek, Goff. I'm going to pick Goff to get through. Happy with that.
Yeah.
I can't believe it, but I'm going to say Sakkari. Maybe just based on the fact that I want her to get through. I'd like her to have a good run. Sakkari Pegula for the other quarter. So that's, I think, all the top seeds there. Pretty safe. Or not safe, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And then Garcia Kudermetova. It's got to be.
Yeah.
And then Samsonova Sabalenka. So no Jabeur.
Sabadabadoo, yeah. Okay. I still think you with Samsonova, you're sticking your neck out a bit. I think Kudermetova as well. I'm just looking at you got Pegula, Sabalenka, Garcia, and Swiatek. That's sort of my 4 favorites for the title, and they're all in your quarters. I would have them as well in the quarterfinals, but as I say, I might go for Krejcikova. And the thing is you say Sakkari. Yeah, I mean, Sakkari could go out any time if you like, but equally could get to the semi-finals.
I might change Garcia, actually.
Pardon?
I might change Garcia.
Oh, really? Go on. What you change it? Change it. You're okay. You can change it.
I'm going to go for Cornet instead.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Cornet, the person who's showing her best form in her mid-30s. And who has been retiring for about 63 years as well. Last year was the last year on tour. Then it's sort of, I don't know, because maybe she doesn't get asked about it so often anymore that she just keeps going. And good for her. Okay. I would go with Garcia over Cornet. Are they due to meet, by the way, then?
In the second round, yes. I'm thinking Garcia.
Second round, an all-French affair.
Yeah, I just think Garcia's a little prone to early round, not jitters, but early round sort of doesn't warm up very well. I think that if Garcia hasn't warmed up, Cornet could take advantage. So I'm going Cornet.
That'll be a great second round match to look out for. I would still have Garcia in there. I would also have Sabalenka in there. Sakkari, I need to go and have a look at her draw another time probably and find somebody she's going to lose to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at it now. I can tell you really that I've lost it again. There we go. Yeah, I can tell you probably the most likely loss would probably be to the 4th round opponent, Keys, I would say.
Yeah.
So Keys probably, if you're going to pick somebody out, I think Keys is probably your pick, or it's going to be.
You know what? Actually, I would say that if she gets to the 4th round and plays matters, I don't know. I think that she will have had enough. Hopefully for Sakkari, she'll have a few confidence builders, and that projects it. I'll have her in my quarterfinals there for. Krejcikova would be a quarterfinal. Yeah, right. So yeah. I'll put Sakkari in my quarters. Let's do that. Okay. What are your semi-final predictions there for?
Sabalenka, Samsonova. Let's go for Samsonova. Why not? In for a penny, right? Let's go for Samsonova, and I'll say Kudermetova. I fancy her chances. So Samsonova, Kudermetova. Wow, that looks a little bit jarring, I suppose, given that would be a finalist there. But I'll go with that. Samsonova, Kudermetova.
And the other semi-final?
Pegula, Swiatek.
Pegula Swiatek, and I'm not going to ask you your winner because I didn't do it on the men's side, although probably don't need to on the men's side. Who have you got in the final?
Kudermetova. Let's go all the way with Kudermetova. Why not? Kudermetova and Pegula.
I thought you might go Pegula.
Yeah,
I thought you might go Pegula.
Why not? I mean, you know, as soon as you see somebody beat somebody like that, it's a pretty big mental boost, right? And she could bring the same level. Again, it wasn't that much about Swiatek. It was more about Pegula. So, yeah.
Finally, Jack, because this is not exactly a preview to the tournament, so we're not going to go too much on predictions and form and stuff. But I would like to know from you some winners and losers in the last 24 hours or last few hours since the draw was made. For me, the standout loser on the men's side is Rafa Nadal. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I would agree with that for sure. Very tough draw, obviously. So definitely.
First 2 rounds in particular. I guess the only thing that would have made it worse would have been Djokovic being on his side. And I guess there's always positives and negatives, and the positive is that he does avoid Djokovic. Are there any other sort of winners and losers in your mind on the Djokovic? For me, as a winner, I think he doesn't need it, but I think he's got it, a comfortable draw. Any other winners and losers on the men's side?
Medvedev's a loser. I think that's a tough draw. Very tough draw for Medvedev. So he's got to go down as a loser in my eyes. And Tsitsipas is a winner. It's a good first few rounds, even though they're quite tough. They're just easy enough or not tough enough that Tsitsipas should find a way through with good form, I think.
I think potentially not as bad because I think the first couple of rounds are okay, but maybe Rune and Kyrgios are probably thinking I could have had an easier route to a potential semi-final or something like that, rather than having to meet in the 4th round and then potentially Djokovic in the quarterfinals. And that's the other thing that sticks out on the men's side. I don't know why, but I don't have Rublev going far, so perhaps his draw is not great either. I can't. He's got Dominic Thiem in the first round, but that's exciting.
He does, yeah. There was a few other. I think the 4th round was the one I was like, he's not getting through. I can't remember who that was. Might have been Kyrgios actually, or Rune. I think
maybe 3rd round even with Kyrgios. Or
no, because that was Kyrgios Rune in the 3rd, right? So
Kyrgios Rune in the 3rd. Yeah, I keep thinking that's the 4th round. Yeah, so that's really, I think that they are losers in this draw. Bearing in mind, you don't want to be in the quarter with Djokovic. That's your sort of first thing if you're Rune or Kyrgios, and you don't want to be in his half, but you certainly don't want to be in his quarter, and you also don't want to really be playing each other. So I think those two are losers from the draw. Maybe Halles is a loser, by the way, just thinking that maybe he doesn't want to be playing a top player in the first round. Okay, what about on the women's side? Any winners and losers there? In Swiatek a loser, maybe?
I was about to say that, but actually I don't think it's quite bad enough that she goes down as a loser. She can cope with that. I don't think it's the end of the world for Swiatek. So no, I wouldn't say a loser there. I would say Pegula definitely goes down as a winner. That's 3 pretty easy first rounds to then get herself rearing and going. So Pegula for sure. Jabeur, a loser. That's not a good first few rounds at all. 2nd, 3rd, 4th round all look brutal for her. So Jabeur a loser.
Because I have Krejcikova sort of so high in my mind, I actually think that Pegula is a little unfortunate to have her in her potential 4th round. And sort of I want to define this sort of this narrative, if you like, in terms of winners and losers. Doesn't mean that you would think that Swiatek is going out first round. It's just, are you as confident as you were 4 or 5 hours ago in their chance of winning the Australian Open? And of course, Rafa in particular stands out as being, I am less confident in him making the final, for example, than I was a few hours ago, although I still think it's very much a chance of happening. Oh, yeah, by the way, I don't know if you saw Novak's hamstring concerns. I can see Ghibli in the live chat talking about them, about it. I don't know if you saw that, Jack?
Yeah, I did see that. I don't think it's much of an issue. He doesn't tend to play any event if he's not fit enough to play, even if he's a little hampered. And a lot of the time he tends to find a way through those matches, doesn't he, when he's clutching at something right? So I don't think it's the end of the world.
Yeah, Medvedev was keen to highlight that as well last week. Anyway, listen, any final comments, or shall we bring this show to a close, Jack?
Just one other person who's definitely won in terms of the draw has got to be the person I picked for the final, Kudermetova. Those first 4 rounds are really good, including the 4th round. Kasatkina isn't the best on hard courts and could get out hit, or Pliskova. Kudermetova should be in the quarters from the bat, basically straight off the bat. So Kudermetova's my other winner.
I don't know if you do the same. I go to TNNS, their app, and by the way, they're not paying me for this, but I go to their app and I do Desperate, where I sort of do my sort of projections, if you like. And
I will be doing that. Yeah.
I don't know if there's any other apps out there, but perhaps there are. Listen, everyone, if you are with us right now, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And this, if you're watching retrospectively, excellent. Get your comments in the section below. I'm sure Jack and I will be very welcoming to your comments that disagree with us, or even agree. Every now and again, we might get an agreement there. So I've just seen a like on Facebook, which is great. Again, on Facebook as well, give us your comments, and also on Twitter. Oh, we've got an Andrew Murray thing going on here. Andrew Murray, I feel bad for him. These draws are sending him to early retirement, I fear, but maybe he will surprise us. Listen, if he wins that first round gloriously, 5 sets and all the rest of it, then who knows?
Let's not forget. All I'm going to say is, let's not forget our man Andy is a 5-time finalist at the Australian Open. There is a reason for that. He is actually quite comfortable at the start of the season. And for somebody who obviously is getting older, I imagine the latter half of the season would probably be less kind to him than the first half. There is a chance the man comes out firing on one of his favourite courts.
You, by the way, were quite big on him before that third round. I think it was against Berrettini. You thought that he would emerge, and that's not long ago.
He was playing so badly against Berrettini. It's unreal, in fairness, and I did not expect that. So I always keep this in mind when I do my Andy predictions nowadays, remembering the previous disappointments. That one was a pretty big disappointment, so I'm not overly confident, but it is possible. I will just keep that in mind.
It's possible. But I think Berrettini's in pretty good form, actually. Probably better condition than he was in September. So that's the negative for that. Listen, wonderful, Jack. Thank you for stopping by. Those of you that are just joining, welcome. But we are bringing this to a close. But you can easily just rewind and watch us from the beginning. So, yeah, Jack, thanks for coming by.
No worries, John. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And yeah, as I say, get in the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. And yeah, take care, everyone. And I'll be seeing you all again in a few hours. I think I'm going to be talking to David Samuel. I'm going to be having a chat with him tonight about coaching and about recovering from defeats. And of course, David, unfortunately, his player Liam Brody lost in qualifiers early this week. So how do you pick these players up and get them going again for the season ahead? All right, Jack, take care.
See you later, John.
Cheers. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.